Okay, shine check, good. Glare check, don't know. Hi folks, I'm Chanel. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. And this is episode 24 of the Pipernell podcast, which is just my rambly podcast about knitting, spinning, though there's no spinning this episode, and just figuring out my life in New Jersey as a recent college grad. So, my show notes are off to the side today. As I said, I'm in New Jersey. I'm in the north part, close to New York City. I am like a short train ride away, so sometimes I hop into the city for cool things. On social media, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry, basically everywhere as Pipernell, Pipernell. And on places where I have a page, like Patreon, by the way, if you support me as a person, Patreon is a great way to support artists for their work. On Patreon and Facebook, I have pages, and they are Pipernell with a space after Piper. And there is a Ravelry group for this podcast, which is called the Pipernell Podcast. And there I host giveaways. That's where I put show notes for every episode, which are very detailed because I'm just, that's the way I do things. And also where I post details about test knitting for possible designs. Not possible. By the time you test knit, they're already designed. So possible test knits for you and for my patterns. Okay, so here's what I got for you today. This is, I'm going to link timestamps to each of these sections. So first we're going to start off with some news about designing, about giveaways, about cows, about whatever. Then I have knitting stories, which are my personal knitting projects. Commissions, which are projects I make for other people, and I really get to explore my techniques. And then I have Q&A this time after commissions because it's a little on the chatty side. And then I don't have on my radar or any shout outs today. So instead I thought I would do on the horizon instead of on my radar, which is stuff that I have in mind, I'm planning, and want to do soon. And then that'd be it. So then it'd be wrap up. So let's jump right into news. Right now I'm running this spindle along, which is a celebration of spindle spinning, anything that's not on a wheel, anything that requires more manual labor than a wheel. So you can bring your drop spindle, you can bring your Turkish spindle, which I guess is a class of drop spindle. You can bring your kick spindle. There are supported spindles, and there are little cool hand spinners. Anything that's slower spinning than a wheel, you can submit your project to the spindle along, which I have a thread running in the Ravelry group. Once you post in that thread with your project, then you're set. I do the bookkeeping. You get an entry per project. And then there are bonus entries, the rules for which are outlined in the thread too. And so yeah, join that. That runs until July 16th. Yeah. Next is just an update on my Pops and Pins test knit that's going on. It's my first sock pattern, so I'm trying to put it really through a battery of testers. So I have the samples with me right here. I think this is their first appearance as a pair because for a while I had lost one and it was like buried in my bed back there because I had worn them and then taken off, and then don't tell anyone that sometimes I just I just like change and then throw my old clothes on my bed and sleep next to them, and sometimes they might get buried somewhere in my sheets. It's okay. I'm 20 something. I can do things. I'm still figuring things out. Okay, so this is the Pops and Pins sock pattern. The main thing that I designed was a slip stitch texture that runs along the body of the sock. They are meant for toe-up construction, and even though the texture was the main design part, the main pattern writing part has definitely been me writing the specific toe, which is toe and heel techniques. So it's written for a rounded toe, which is a very nice finish, and a slip stitch, an eye of partridge heel flap. So you might be wondering, this toe up heel flap deal. There's really no flap ever in the pattern. Once you get past the heel turn, what you actually do is knit back and forth to join onto the gusset stitches, thus decreasing and joining up a piece of flat knitting that you work up. But it never actually flaps around. But it does look like a cuff down heel flap and gusset. And the special thing that I hacked together for this pattern is the ability to do a contrasting heel flap without having to knit across the instep or having to cut your main color. So yeah, that's what took a lot of engineering for me, and I guess that also went into the design part. So the test knit for these socks should be over in about a week and a half, so look out for that pattern. And last reminder about the Sandbloom shawl, which is my second Sandbloom second shawl design as a collaboration with Critium Handmade. The kits are for sale in her Etsy shop, and for now the pattern is only available as part of the kit, so really check out her Etsy shop. It's linked in the show notes and down in the YouTube down bar, whatever it's called. And she has taken $10 off of the kit to make it more affordable, so really go check that out. It comes with beautiful hand-dyed yarn, hand-sewn project bags, and a set of handmade stitch markers. So really, she's this all-around great maker. Really check her out. Last piece of news is now there is a new giveaway on top of the spin-along that's going on. So as part of my Patreon campaign, I'm really investing in the funds to just diversify the content that I put out there online and through my knitting and my craft. And one thing that my patrons have allowed me to do is a monthly giveaway, because I have now enough pledges to do a monthly giveaway for notions, yarn, and so on. And as more pledges come in, the bigger the prizes can get. So this month is the first month that I'm doing a giveaway, and I'm starting off modest. There's sets of stitch markers, and you're going to have to stay tuned until the end to see the prize. So that's my little incentive for you to watch the entire episode. But yeah, that's why I'm doing this giveaway. So thank you so much to all my patrons who have made this possible, and also just for making my work currently possible, because this is honestly, the happiest and most fulfilled I've been with my work so far in my short career as a non-student so far. That was it for news. So that moves us on to knitting stories, which are my personal projects. And I'm not really making for anyone in particular, or I'm just making for fun. So the first project is actually not going to be the migration cardigan. I don't have any updates on that this week because I haven't made any progress on it. I can't find my needles that I want to cast it on with. I knit up a swatch on US 8 needles. I'm a little bit over gauge, so I thought I would size down to US 7 needles, and I can't find them. So stay tuned. So the first project that I actually have to show is a whip, and they haven't made an appearance for a while. They're a pair of socks. The pattern is Lunar Tides by Louise Tilbrook. Here they are. You can see that it's a textured cable. It's a little bit lacy. Within some of these cables, you have a bit of open work, just a couple of eyelets that make it add a little bit of delicacy, but still make this quite a unisex pattern. And it's just so nicely detailed. So I thought that I would kind of continue the cable rib pattern down the heel flap, which I think last time when I showed it, I was just a couple of repeats in. So I did maybe about one more repeat for the leg. These are cuffed down 2 at a time. And now I'm working back and forth on the heel flaps. So the yarn I'm using here is a merino nylon stellina blend. You can see all that sparkle. Isn't that so pretty? Yeah, that's pretty. So this is Ethereal Fibers Starlight Sock in the colorway Anchored, and she's an indie dyer that's based out of my hometown, Las Vegas. So whoop whoop, Las Vegas represent. I'm using US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. That's my usual sock gauge. I think these are 60 stitch socks, so really close to my usual sock gauge. I feel like now in my sock knitting career, I am pretty comfortable with knowing my stitch count, what fits for me, and then what I have to do to adjust to cables or lace. So the thing with cables is that they tend to shrink in the fabric and be a little less stretchy and create a thicker fabric. However, the texture, this is seed stitch. This is a free pattern on Ravelry, by the way, so I can say all the details I want. The seed stitch in between the cables provides this knit purl texture that is really stretchy, so I just thought I would go for my usual sock gauge. It's either a 60 or a 56 stitch, which is on the small side of what I've knitted socks in. The largest stitch count I've ever done is a 64 stitch sock, and that was on the slip stitch patterns like pops and pins that don't have any purls, because that's just stockinette's already a little bit not stretchy, and then the slip stitches make it an even stiffer fabric, so sizing up a couple of stitches is probably good if you're doing a slip stitch stockinette based texture. Okay, so I mentioned that I'm doing a heel flap and gusset. I need to look up how exactly to do the heel turn, because it's been a while since I've done a cuff down heel flap and gusset heel, but these are going into a couple of different cows that I just want to mention. So I'm entering them into Get Lit and Knit's Spring Sock Cow, which they're running just on Instagram because they're both very, very busy go-getters right now. So, hey Abby, hey Ali, I hope you guys are doing well. I know, like, school can be really stressful, so power to you as someone who is out of the school scene temporarily, and best of luck to you, seriously. But you have summer coming up, which is probably why you're running this cow, to have something to look forward to. And yeah, just hope you're getting time for yourselves and taking care of yourselves. The next thing that I'm entering any of my future sock projects into for until September-ish is the Summer Sock Marathon hosted by the Knitters League. So confession, I haven't actually checked out their podcast, but I was recruited onto a team by my friend LaShonda, who we met through VKN, and she's also was one of my Sandbloom test knitters. And we were talking, and she was like, oh, so I'm making socks for a sock marathon. And I'm like, oh, I can totally contribute. So the idea behind the Summer Sock Marathon is that each team has to make 26 pairs. Right now on my team, there are 3 people, which is 8 socks plus 2 people have to do extra if we split it up somewhat evenly. And the only rule for submissions is that each sock has to take 80 yards at least, and they have to be finished after Easter. So, and whips are allowed no matter when they were, no matter how far along they were, as long as they were finished after Easter, you can submit them. So I already have 2 sock projects that I submitted because I had finished them before I had heard of the cowl and joined the team, but were finished after Easter, so you can backdate them like that. And then I have this sock, which is a 3rd one, and then I have a bunch of sock yarn, so I have one that I definitely want to do, and then I can definitely plan out like 4 or 5 more sock projects and get them done before December. So that's really fun. I'm having a lot of fun with socks because they're definitely like my bread and butter personal project. I can never have too many hand knit socks. So yeah, that's it for the Lunar Tide socks. Just one last time. Don't you just love that navy blue? I love navy blue, and I've actually enjoyed working with dark yarn, so yeah. Next whip is a new whip, and it's actually not knitting, so it can't really belong in knitting stories, but fine, it's just stories. That's my section. And it is actually a crochet piece. And yes, I've gotten back into crochet somewhat. I haven't crocheted since college, and haven't crocheted anything beyond like a chain for a provisional cast on. So this is my first substantial crochet project in a while, and it's going to be a summer crop top. So story behind this, I was convinced to do one by a friend in my knitting group who made a really cute, like, kind of, it was a halter top, like, this is how it's going to go on, this piece goes in the front, and she had made one for her daughter, who is about my age, that had a keyhole up here. I thought that was really cute, the general halter shape, and it laced up in the back, so it wasn't a true halter that tied behind the neck. I didn't like the keyhole so much, so I found a similar pattern, but I think I want to do a similar lace up in the back because I hate halters. I don't know why. I cannot stand something tied behind my neck like that. It's just, ugh. I can't even wear, like, aprons because of that. I don't know. Am I weird for that? So after seeing her project, I was just really convinced that I needed to make one for me. So this is just some acrylic I had in my stash. I think it's not Red Heart Super Saver. It's a different brand. I think it's Michael's, like, house brand. But it's similar. It's probably acrylic, and it's this nice magenta color. It's showing up more red than it does in real life on camera. And the pattern that I'm following is the Lex crop top by Wool and the Gang, which is also a free pattern. You do have to sign up for a newsletter, but if you're bugged by excessive emails, then what you can do is sign up and then unsubscribe after you download the PDF, because, yeah. The hook I'm using is just an aluminum boy hook that's in the size USH, or USH. I'm not, what size does that correspond to? I'm not sure. That's something that's been intimidating about crochet to me, is that all of the vocabulary just seems more complicated than knitting. Like, the hook sizes, they make less sense. Oh, that's 45 cents. I totally thought this said 4.5 millimeters. Yeah, so the hook sizes, I don't really get. The stitches, this is all half double crochet, and I definitely had to look up how to do each stitch that's in this pattern, because I was like, why isn't a half double crochet just a single crochet? Because half of a double is a single, right? No. Yeah, so my technical vocabulary for crochet, or as they might say in a teaching world, my academic language is def weak, is real weak in crochet. Like, if you didn't tell me what stitches to do and I didn't know what its name was or hadn't looked it up, this is how I describe crocheting. I'd be like, okay, you take the yarn and you put a loopy over your hook, and then you stick it into a loopy that you've already made, and then you do another loopy, and then you draw that loopy through other loopies, and then that's a stitch, right? I don't know what stitch I just did, but I just did a bunch of loopies. That's all I know about crochet. So, stumbling my way through the summer crop top. And maybe it's just a learning curve. I'm sure, like, maybe crocheters crossing over into knitting are also like, well, knitting is such a foreign language to me, so... I don't know. Maybe I'll do more crocheting this summer. Maybe I'll make more crop tops. And some of my friends have been asking me, hey, you do so much knitting, do you crochet some crop tops? I'm like, maybe. Meh. Maybe. Okay. The last project I have for Knitting Stories is technically a commission, but it's been so loosey-goosey and informal, and there's such a great story behind it that I'm putting it in this section. This is what it is so far. I have not done any of this needlework. None of this is my work. This is what I've inherited from a friend of a friend. So the friend, whose friend that I inherited the project from, is Kina of the She's Crafty podcast, who is the Limitless Crafter everywhere on social media. You should check her stuff out. She makes a lot of things too. She spins, she makes bags, like, she just has her hands in so many different crafts. I got mad respect for her. So this is a languishing project of hers that she sent to me. A friend asked her to finish it was a chair or a table runner with these, I'm not sure if they're corn, if they're pineapples, if they're acorns. I'm not really sure what they are, but they're stranded color work, and it's pretty nicely done. In this kind of scratchy vintage acrylic with a bunch of knots in it. I don't know. It's a cool project though. I'm intrigued by it. So when she showed it to me, I was like, hey, if you're really hating this project and it's, not making you happy anymore, I'm intrigued by it now that you've told me about it. So why don't you send it to me and I can finish it for you? So that's what I'm doing. It's some mystery chair runner. This is just the piece. So she sent me 2 pieces and the yarn that she has. This is the piece that had been finished by her friend. It was bound off, and it seems like this is all color work in the flat, so you had to purl the wrong side and just carry the floats along as you purled. And I guess you can also kind of think of it as intarsia, stranded intarsia, I guess. And so when I picked this up, this is at a really dense gauge, and it's about worsted weight. So what I'm doing on the other piece that's similar to this, but it's a little shorter. So this has 7, I'm just going to call them doohickeys. This has 7 doohickeys, and the piece that is unbound off, unfinished, had 5 when it got to me, a little bit incomplete. It had a little bit, like 2 rows left at the tip of the doohickey. So I finished it and just kind of BS'd my little stranded work. That was my first time doing stranded color work in the flat. So, and there's not enough. She only sent brown yarn and a little teeny bit of orange yarn. There is no green yarn left over. So I don't think I will do any more doohickeys because I also don't want to reverse engineer this pattern. So that one just has 5. This has 7. That is 12 in total. So that's an even number if I were to like fold it up in half and do 6 on each side as a runner. I need to make sure that what I have in mind is what Kina and her friend have in mind. But what I'm thinking of doing is so that to have 6 on each side and to have 2 straps of symmetrical doohickeys, which would be more versatile, whatever shape this ends up as. I'm going to cut off one of these doohickeys and graft it onto the unfinished strip. And from there, once I have 2 strips of the same length, once she sends me a picture, she gave me rough dimensions, about 4 to 6 feet long, which would be the length of one of these, and 2 to 3 feet wide. So what I'm thinking is that I'll link them up with a garter section in between. So you imagine 2 of these here, garter section in between, and maybe a garter. So my point behind the garter is to get the stockinette to stop rolling, so you have a piece that lays flat. And then a border out here. I'm not sure if I want to do a rib, if I want to do more garter with short row shaping to make it kind of like an oval. And then we'll see how that looks, and then I'll do maybe something at the ends. But yeah, that's the mystery chair runner, so I am going to wait for updates from Kina for that. And yeah, thanks for sending me this very intriguing project. That's all I have for knitting stories. That was a kind of long-winded story, so I am going to drink some of my iced tea. This is just iced tea. By that, I mean I steeped the tea and then stuck it in the fridge overnight, to steep. Alright, hydrated, somewhat cooled down. It is on to commission projects. The first thing I had to show was a whip last time, and I got a ton done on it, even though it's only been about a week. It's actually been done for a couple days now. It is the Honey Locust Loop for my friend Leanna. And just check out how that color work turned out, especially in this yarn. So this yarn is Knit Picks palette in, let me go through the colors. This brownish red is Merlot Heather. This light pink used for the accents. I love this geometric accent. I would actually just knit an entire scarf with stripes like this. Maybe I'll use the leftovers for that. So that is in blush. And then this light green is Green Tea Heather. And I love this color combination, but I can't take any credit for it. She is the one that picked it all. So I think when I showed it last week, I had cast on here. It was about here. I was a couple of leaves in. So the pattern keeps going up and up and up the stalks of the leaves until you get to the caps, which have little flowers on top. And then it's like they're shedding leaves and throwing up pollen and causing allergies for people like me. But it's super cute. And it was a super addicting pattern. By the way, the pattern is called the Honey Locust Loop by Erica Heuser. And I'm still not sure how to say her last name, but I've been pronouncing it Heuser in my head. And I used US 2 or 2.5 millimeter needles, which this is a fingering weight yarn. I would say it's on the lighter side. Here's my leftover yarn with the 3 donuts of yarn. These are actually called donuts. Did you know that? When a ball of yarn is wound up like this, they're called donuts. They look like donuts. Donuts. Yeah, so if you look at this yarn, it's a 2-ply yarn. It's a pretty thin fingering weight. I feel like it really recalls the construction of traditional Shetland 2-plies. So this, I feel like, is good practice for my eventual fingering weight stranded colorwork sweater. And I think I found a good gauge for it using those US 2s. It's, you want to... Colorwork, I think, tends to be tighter for a lot of people, and I think it's just a good solid fabric that I got with the US 2s. There are no holes that you could see the floats in, but it's also not too tight that it's, when you wear it, it's like steel ring. Kind of a warning about this pattern is that it has several, it relies heavily on long floats actually. So if you see here between the leaves, this is a row of just like 12 or 15 greens in a row. And then here you might have like 12 or 15 browns in a row. Here you might have a lot of long brown floats as the leaves get more spaced out. But then there was a lot of just stockinette around for this cowl, which I really enjoyed. One thing more about technique is that, so you start at, I keep turning it over and over. You start around here, about 5 inches from below where this accent starts, and then you knit stockinette in the round. You finish the colorwork motif, more stockinette in the round, which gives it a really nice rhythm to the pattern. More stranded colorwork, and more stockinette in the round. So you started at the ends, and you end up with this tube, and then you took the ends and grafted them onto each other. So that was over 100 stitches of grafting to do. Honestly, I didn't mind it at all. I like Kitchener stitch. I did not do it in one sitting. I had to do it in 2 or 3 sittings, and I was kind of watching TV as I did it. But once you really get into the rhythm of Kitchener grafting, it's really nice. So I feel like socks don't give you enough time to build up that rhythm, but grafting the ends of a cowl together like this, it did let me build up that rhythm. And yeah, that's it for, oh wait, no, quick note about blocking this thing. So the pattern gave you options for blocking either before grafting or after grafting. I didn't want to take my stitches off and put them on waste yarn. Also, I was worried about Kitchenering on at a different tension than it was post-blocking. So what I did was I grafted and tried to match my unblocked tension, my gauge, as evenly as possible. You can barely see the graft line. It's here exactly in the middle of this stockinette section. So it was more visible before blocking, and then after blocking, it's nearly invisible. So that was my reason for choosing to graft before blocking, and I'm trying to get better about weaving in ends before blocking too, so that way you let the ends settle into the same tension that the rest of the block fabric does. But yeah, so I feel like blocking really should be the last finishing step, and maybe like snip off the ends then after you take it off the blocking mats, but I'm trying to get better about that with my process. So that's all about the Honey Locust Loop by Erica Heuser. I guess Heiser would be a different pronunciation. The next project wasn't even cast on, didn't even have the yarn last episode, but it was such a quick knit that I got the yarn after I finished recording last episode, and it's already an FO because it's a hat. It's for my friend Constanza, and it's a pattern that a lot of people probably know here. The pattern is Declan's Hat by Samantha Kirby, which is a free pattern on Ravelry, and I highly recommend it. This actually was my second hat project ever back when I first started knitting. I did a plain stockinette beanie. I did know knits and pearls by that point, so I think, no, it wasn't plain stockinette. It was mostly plain stockinette, but it had a garter stitch segment, which I accidentally turned into reverse stockinette. But it was barley by Tin Can Knits, or rye, one of the grains, their free hat pattern. So after that, I wanted to challenge myself with some cables. I was an ambitious beginner. And I feel like I still am very ambitious in my projects today, which is why I got into commission knitting, because they pose great challenges, very exciting challenges for me. So I knit the adult medium size, and because I had a history with this pattern, I make it sound like it was bad. Kind of was. So I also knit the adult medium back in the day on the same recommended needle size US 6, which I used for this pattern. I was worried if I had to size up to a 7 or an 8 because my first Declan's hat actually turned out really tight on my head. Or maybe I have a bigger head than average, but it turned out tight, and I think it's because I was a beginning knitter, and I think in general a knitter's tension tends to loosen up as they get more experienced. So I just went with a US 6. I decided to take a gamble, saying it'd be a quick enough knit if I had to rip it all out and knit it again. And I used the US 6 again, and this time it turned out a normal size, and it fits with it pretty generously. So my tension has definitely loosened up since I was a beginner, which is really interesting to just finally be able to find out and measure. Yarn. So the yarn for this hat is Knit Picks City Tweed in the heavyweight. I've used the DK weight before. This was my first time using their heavyweight, which is closer to a heavy worsted or Aran weight yarn, in the colorway Snowshoe. So maybe the weight of yarn could have also affected things. Though for my first Declan's hat, I did use Lion Brand Woolies, which is on the Aran side. But this yarn, City Tweed, I can't recommend it enough. It's a merino, alpaca, and nylon blend. It's just super tough, but also super soft and just lovely to work with yarn. And I love this cream color that she chose, and the flecks just blend very naturally into the fabric, and they don't distract from the cables and add a very interesting texture to the hat. So I really just love this. Yeah, I really should just make myself a hat from City Tweed in one of their weights, because I've only ever used it for commissions, and I end up loving every project so much and have so much trouble actually giving it to their rightful owners. So yeah, that's it for Declan's hat for my friend Constanza. And the next project, so I had 2 FOs. I don't have any commission whips. This last one is a nap, a needle adjacent project, just because I have kind of procrastinated on casting this on because it's my own design. So I've been hashing out the design details before I cast it on. I'm just getting the yarn. Here it is! Woohoo! Look at that. There are 4 skeins in here. 2 of the black, which actually is a Stellina blend, and 2 of the cream base, which is, so colorways. Well, no, first, where this yarn is from. This yarn was born and raised in New Jersey. Oh, I don't know where it was milled, but it was dyed also in New Jersey, and now it's going to be knit in New Jersey. And it's going to, the person who commissioned this is in New York, so it's staying very local. This is from Pancake and Lulu Yarns, which she abbreviates as Ply. Everything's just so cute about her brand. So the dyer is named Amy. She is located in Princeton, New Jersey, which is about an hour and a half south of me. And cream is in her colorway Bone. She does a lot of tonals dyed to order, which I love as a designer who likes my semi-solids and my tonals, and I like my variegateds to coordinate with tonals. So this is the colorway Bone, and it's a warm, very light creamy brown. So very, very lightly colored. And this is on her base that's called Ply Fingering Sock. It's 80% superwash merino and 20% bamboo. It feels really nice. I haven't really worked with a lot of bamboo yarn, so I'm curious to see how bamboo compares to nylon. And this is 430 yards per 100 grams skein. So generous yardage. I got 2 of them. This black yarn the colorway is called Charcoal, and the base is called Sparkle Sock, which is 75% merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina. And it is 438 yards per skein in 100 grams. So I just want to, I guess, talk a little bit about the advantages of buying indie dyed yarn and not maybe from a larger operation like Jimmy Beans, Mad Tosh, Malabrigo, and stuff, like true, very small businesses. So when I was ordering the yarn, I could consult Amy or Amy, I don't know how you pronounce your name. If you watch this, hi. I hope you're enjoying seeing your yarn on screen because they're beautiful. So while I ordered from Amy, I could ask her for recommendations like, hey, I definitely wanted a charcoal, but there was another cream, light brown colorway in her shop that I thought might go with the black, but she suggested this one because there would be higher contrast, and I did send her a mock-up of the pattern, which is kind of a delicate light background, dark motif. So I want high contrast between the 2 colors. And then when I placed my order and she had seen my choices of base for the yarn, I had just assumed that her superwash merino and her merino nylon blend sock would match the sparkle sock base better, but she said that this ply fingering, which is merino bamboo, would match it better, even better. So she said that she asked if I wanted to substitute the base. It would not change the price at all. So I said, yeah, thanks so much for the heads up. And she did. So it's awesome to be able to personally collaborate with the dyer and talk to them one-on-one and discuss the details of the project with them so they can really make sure that their product will make your project as best as it can be. I am just really excited for this project, and what else I got from her shop is going to be in the giveaway. So stay tuned for that. More about the design that this project's going to go into. It's going to be a stranded colorwork, long scarf, rectangular scarf. So that's why I got 2 skeins of each color, because this person's a fairly tall person, and I think he's over 6 feet. So his scarf should be, about his height, to be proportional. And the pattern that I'm going to do, he's a biology nerd, so he suggested, could I have DNA on it? And so the pattern that I've actually designed, I think I'm going to call this scarf helicase, because the design will be, you'll start it with DNA at both ends, and then they'll spiral up and then separate into one-sided helices. So DNA is a double helix, and when a cell is replicating, or when basically when you do anything for DNA to do anything useful, the proteins split it up into single helices, plural of helix, then that's where you make RNA, and that's how you make more proteins and stuff. So DNA, the helicase is the protein, the enzyme that facilitates that DNA splitting down the middle like a zipper. And so what's going to happen is that the DNA is going to split up into its halves in the middle, which creates this very shorter repeat geometric design, and then the 2 halves merge back into a double helix once the once it reaches the other end. So that's going to be the scarf. I haven't decided if I want to do any extra ribbing at the ends. So that might make the pattern just more palatable to people who might not want to slog through stranded colorwork for the whole X number of feet that it's going to be. The ribbing can add a bit of length and a nice just anchoring point for the ends. So stay tuned for that. And this yet to be tentatively named scarf pattern design. But yeah, that's all I have for knitting talk. So that's all the projects that I have. All I have on the rest of it is still knitting related, but it's going to be more chatty. So let's start with some Q&A. I got 2 awesome questions from Mars of the Brownberry Chronicles podcast. She posted in my Q&A thread, which is in the Ravelry group. So if you have any questions for me, especially following up after this, or any random questions that you have, then you can post them in the thread. You can also post them in the YouTube comments. If it's a short answer, then I'll just answer in a reply. But if it's a question that requires a lot of thought, then I will put it up here and just kind of muse about it on screen. So her first question is all about social media. So I'm just going to read her question. What's your favorite platform for posting content? Why? And what's your favorite platform for viewing and consuming content? Why? So my favorite platform for posting content would definitely be between Facebook and YouTube. I mean, that's where I get the most kind of engagement. I post on my Facebook page as pipernell, and then I post videos, mostly podcast episodes, but sometimes I'll post a vlog or a tutorial, which I haven't done many of. I need to plan more on YouTube, and just all the comments and supportive, kind words that I get. It feeds my ego. It's good. But it's also where I make the most connections. I do like posting on Ravelry, but I feel like that's not so much content as just me socializing and using media. So publishing and posting content, definitely Facebook or YouTube. And those two are very different, so I can't really compare them. So my favorite platform for viewing or consuming content would be either Instagram or YouTube. So I've gotten lately into watching, and I guess posting or streaming to Instagram live videos. I actually did one this morning before recording. That way I also got to bounce ideas off of. I didn't put this in my favorite platform for posting because I feel like I'm still pretty new to it, so I can't compare it yet. But my favorite platform for viewing and consuming content is definitely Instagram or YouTube. So YouTube wins on both. Instagram, I do like posting on Instagram, but I do it pretty rarely. Or I don't know. I really like just scrolling through Instagrams, like maybe laying in my bed before I go to sleep, which I know is bad for sleeping, but I still sleep fine. So scrolling through and giving everyone a like and just seeing so many pretty pictures and commenting, and the DMs have really proven to be a great way to network with people. So I like Instagram content. And then YouTube content, it's very engaging. It's the videos. I don't comment so much on YouTube, but I still feel like I'm actively consuming content and subscribing and discovering new videos. And then what I'll usually do is that links up back with Instagram, and I'll connect more with that person that I see on YouTube on Instagram. So that hopefully that answers your first question, Mars, about social media. And then your second question is, what usually sparks your design process? Color, shape, the yarn type and or texture, something else? So not having too much design experience yet, but really getting into it, I think that my design process is kind of all over the place right now. Let's run through my design so far. So the Miter Nova, it started with the yarn that I got, which also came from Mars, and is now back to you. I think it was only fitting that the Miter Nova, because the inspiration came from her, the finished object would end up with her. So I actually sent her the finished lace weight sample. And I had a skein of lace weight gradient yarn and a skein of solid coordinating yarn. And I was looking through patterns for this, but I'm like, nothing really would do this justice in my eyes. Let me try to design something. So that the design for Miter Nova came out of the yarn. It's meant especially to highlight a gradient yarn and with a coordinating or contrasting skein. So in my second sample, I actually did a gradient and a speckled yarn. So really it's to highlight the gradient. But you can do it it ended up in testing. I realized it's also great for just playing with colors in general. So the idea of playing with colors plus the colors of the yarn that I already had inspired that design. The second one was the sand bloom shawl, and that one turned out to be an asymmetrical crescent. So when I knew the item type that I would be designing as a result of collaborating with SS, but she gave me a lot of artistic creativity. She said she would prefer for me to design a shawl, and I looked through her Etsy shop to see her existing colorways. She said that she would dye up new colorways for this, but in the style of what she usually does, which is variegated short color repeats. And so again, the sand bloom really came out of the yarn, but also a concrete inspiration behind the designs, which is I sent her some pictures of the desert landscape that I grew up in around Las Vegas, and she dyed up a couple of the colorways while I designed some stitch patterns. And so as I was designing the stitch patterns, I knew I eventually wanted them to go into an asymmetrical crescent. I'm not sure where that one came from, but it ended up really fitting into my instinctual connection with that ecosystem, which is that a lot of plants grow asymmetrically and are beautiful in their own kind of haphazard way. So that ended up being the idea that solidified the asymmetrical crescent. And the individual stitch patterns, I knew the kind of general plants or plant families I wanted to evoke. Yeah, so a lot of things spark it. Right now I have a couple of designs, but they're mostly coming from a shape or a feature that I wanted to incorporate, or the yarn. So yeah, I feel like it really starts with a concept for me, and once I see the perfect yarn, it goes. And then I sketch it, and that's where I work out the details, but the details aren't really nailed down until I start knitting the sample, which is why I don't think I could ever be one of those designers that knit the sample while they write the pattern, or write the pattern to send it to testers and then knit. Maybe it'll take experience. But yeah, thanks so much for your 2 questions, Mars. I hope I gave good answers to both of them. And the last question I actually didn't get recently. I got a long time ago, actually about a year ago, and I really have not been good about answering it, and I kept meaning to. I thought it might take its own video, but I'm just going to do it now and maybe give it some more thought later. But this question comes from Kim of the Crafty Nomad. So a year ago, just about a year ago, which is crazy, I was graduating college and moving out of my dorm. And so in preparation for my last episode that I would record in my dorm room, I sent out an Instagram post that said, ask me anything. Ask me about college, ask me about what about this point in my life. And Kim asked me a really interesting question that I somehow skipped in that episode, probably because I was still thinking about it, which is, what would be your ideal career and why? And that's something that I don't really have a good answer to right now. I feel like this is why my episode's titled I Need Future Vision, because I don't know what's going to happen to me in the future. Right now, so I graduated college. when I was in my senior year of college, I was really torn between kind of forcing myself through grad school, which I did not feel ready for, or doing something else. And I frantically looked for something, and I found the teaching program that I was in for a few months, and it turned out I was also just forcing myself through that, and turned out not to be a good fit for me. So I think right now I'm trying to actually avoid idealizing a certain career path and taking what comes to me in the short term. If that really sparks my passion for learning, for art, for science, and for social change, then I'll pursue it as a career, I guess. But I guess, yeah, that I'm trying to build my ideal career from what I know I love. Like I said, the arts, sciences, activism, social activism, and just continually learning, because I know those are things that I'm passionate about and I love, and I don't want to get too tied to a particular field that will satisfy, because it might not satisfy all of those things. I'm going to try to, I guess, blaze my own path. And I'm kind of doing that now, I guess. I recently I'm still locking down a part-time gig at an art gallery / kind of community workshop space, which sounds really cool. I think I'm going to start within the week, so I'll get back to y'all on that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on my career right now. I know that I love teaching and learning, but I think part of public education that was not for me was that there were so many levels of bureaucracy above me, and all of the rules and structures that I had to work within just really battered me, as someone who, a lot of systems are not made for me. I'm a queer, disabled, working class woman of color, and there's a lot of different kinds of discriminations and oppressions intersecting in me, and it kind of made sense after I got out that this was a system not built for me and would not be good for me to stay in. So yeah, that's my thoughts on my ideal career right now. So thanks so much for the thought-provoking question, Kim. And anyone, feel free to ask me follow-up questions and random questions this might have sparked. But I'm using the word sparked a lot. So now, on a lighter note, I have a question from me to you that I've been asking people for a little bit recently. So if you were a dog, what breed would you be and why? I'll tell you my current answer to this. I know I'd be a small breed of dog because I am smaller than average. I'm pretty short. I'm 5'1", and I'm not too skinny, as you can see from my arms. I'm actually more of a stocky build, but I'm about like 120, 130 pounds. I don't know what that would be in kilograms or stone. So I'm like kind of athletically built. So I'd definitely be like some kind of terrier that's used for sport, or utility, like a small work dog. And I'm trying to decide if I would be a Scottie or a Yorkie, because both of those are way too vicious for their sizes and tackle way bigger animals than they should be. And I feel like that's me. That's definitely me. So yeah, again, repeating the question, if you were a dog, what breed would you be and why? Feel free to answer this question in the YouTube comments or in the Ravelry thread. This is going to be separate from the giveaway question, which, have I come up with yet? I'll think of it as I talk. So that's it for Q&A. Next is On the Horizon. That is my new section this episode. It is just things that I'm thinking about. I think some people might call similar sections knitting dreams or something, but this isn't necessarily knitting specific. I have a couple of design ideas in mind or projects coming up. So I need to follow up with it and lock down the project. I think I am collaborating with someone on a pair of 80s inspired socks. So I'm collaborating with the dyer and I'm coming out with a sock pattern. and the collection's going to be full of neons and inspired by Gem and the Holograms. So it's very 80s. I'm a little too young for the 80s, but I've been looking up old episodes of Gem and the Holograms, and I'm like, this is amazing. Also, the colors in this show are amazing. So that's definitely inspiring my sock designing. And it'd be very out of my comfort zones, which is great. And I love a challenge, as I've said. The next design that I have on my mind is a burlesque shawl. And, well, a shawl inspired by burlesque and motifs. So right now my current idea is an elongated triangle. And, oh, there is someone driving the wrong way down the one-way street. Okay, I'm not going to say a thing. Though I already did, and it's going to go on the internet. So, guy, you screwed up. So I have an idea for a shawl this came out of my tassels comment on a previous episode. And I'm like, like, tassels on shawls have been a thing. What about, and it just reminded me of nipple tassels because I have a dirty mind. So I'm like, what about a burlesque inspired shawl? So this shawl is going to have 3 tassels, one in each corner of the elongated triangle. And up the middle, up the spine, is going to be lace that looks like corset lacing. Or maybe literally corset lacing. I haven't decided yet. I'm still working out that detail. But basically, that's my idea. I really am attached to this idea and I want to make it happen. So I'm shopping for silk blend yarns for it because I might as well just continue the burlesque / lingerie sexy vibe and just make it in silk. Not 100% silk because I do like working with wool and I want it to block well and be nice and still springy. So it's going to be some wool silk blend yarn. Probably in a dark jewel tone color. Yeah. The burlesque shawl. I don't know if I can call it anything else besides the burlesque shawl now because that's just in my head. Some knitting teaching, it's coming up. Most things are in the future right now. I talked about the 2 at a time sock tutorial that I did with my knitting group last episode. But I've been trying to plan what my next tutorial would be. I think I want to do one on reading charts because that's a skill that you can build a lot off of. And I'm not surprised, but it's a lot of people are scared by charts. So as someone who's become very comfortable with charts and I'm a visual reasoner. So I want to plan a little tutorial on how to read different charts, knit in the flat versus in the round, and what a chart might look like for color work or lace or cables. And that would be a springboard and a prerequisite for maybe classes that I could teach, like a color work class that a lot of people have been asking about. And I think these start off as tutorials, and I feel like it wouldn't be considered a class until you have a project to take out of it. So my 2 at a time sock tutorial could be considered a class because it was meant to start everyone and get them on their way on their first toe up 2 at a time socks. So I think a colorwork class, you would come out with a coffee cozy, because that's a nice little tube that you can knit with stranded colorwork. And I also I've been thinking about doing a kind of freeform shawl class. So the specific techniques that would be taught in tutorial form would be a garter tab cast on, and then people would get started on the shawl shaping. So they could choose from like an asymmetrical triangle, a traditional triangle, a crescent, maybe a couple of more shapes. They'd be told, like, they could get the instructions for how to continue it in stockinette or garter. But then from there, it's really up to them. And I would also give them pointers for how to incorporate a lace chart or something if they want. A lace stitch if they have a stitch dictionary, and that would have to refer back to the reading charts tutorial. So yeah, that would be really cool. And I'm kind of mentally just building up a curriculum in my head. It'd have to be more elementary than reading charts. So I'm trying to build up a curriculum of specific skills and techniques that a beginner would have to pick up, maybe like on their way to like their first sock project or to their first shawl project or so on. My goal would be like my ultimate dream would be like, here's this how to knit tutorial, okay, you start with casting on, knit stitch, okay, you can do garter stitch. And then from there, you have options to branch out into skills and pick up different topics and projects, which would be really cool. So that's my idea of a curriculum. And that's what's on the horizon for me. I'm just thinking of like a sunrise, like, ah. So that brings me to wrap up. So the only thing I have to wrap this up with is, well, first, a thank you to everyone who tuned in and watched. If this was your first time watching me, I hope you liked it. You made it all the way to the end, so you probably liked it. And then I want to thank all the returning viewers. Like, thank you so much for your continued support. And like, really, without this community to sustain me, I would really not be here doing my knitting and being in the current place that I am right now. So as a thank you, I want to put out one of these two sets of stitch markers in my giveaway. I'm actually going to put up both of them up for grabs, but just draw one winner, and you will have your choice of either this green themed owl, like very leafy forest, the stitch marker set. That's so cute. That's so cute. These are all from Ply, Pancake and Lulu yarns. And this second set is a birdhouse, and you also have leaf beads here. It's also so cute. See, her branding is just so cute. These are, as she says, universal size. They fit just about all needles because the loop part is so flexible. So let's see. What will the giveaway be? What will the giveaway question be? Oh, I got it. So to enter this giveaway, I'm going to start a separate thread for it. And the question is going to be, what is your current favorite project right now? And what makes you happy about it? So I hope that's a fun question to answer. I'm going to start a Ravelry thread. These will both be up for grabs. And they will, you'll get your pick of one of these. I'm keeping one of them, definitely. I just can't decide, so you decide for me. And that's May's monthly giveaway. So this is going to be something I'm going to start doing every month because of my Patreon funding. So if you like this giveaway and you want it to keep going, then please head over to my Patreon if you want and pledge. Even just a tiny amount helps. I'm trying to get to $100 per month because I want to fund business cards for myself. So that's my next Patreon goal. And the last wrap-up thing, look out for my Pops and Pins sock pattern that should be coming out soon. And I am going to actually go to lunch first and then the post office to mail out my 2 commission FOs. So I think this is going to be my recording schedule from now on. Whenever I head to the post office to ship out commissions, I'm going to record. So that keeps me accountable and that keeps content regularly coming out for you. So thanks again for watching. And remember, you can find me on all the social media as pipernell. Like this video, subscribe if you liked it, and join the Ravelry group. And join the giveaway, join all the fun, join the spindle along. I just really enjoy organizing things. So, yeah, thanks everyone. Bye. Wow, I look buff. No, look at that flab. I'm not buff. I mean, yeah.